A very good morning once again, and welcome to this edition of the Topical Discussion. My name is Simon Kagwanjara, and well, this morning we chose to take a peek into how government is speaking in the midst of a political contestation. The recent Arua crisis has prompted President Museveni to get onto overdrive on social media, engaging that class of people, that cluster, and seriously exchanging with them. We've also had, or rather seen, the president's spokespersons, the government spokespersons, quite engaging. But well, where are the gaps? The fundamental question that would also be asking is whether government is speaking right in the midst of the current storm. I'm joined by the government spokesperson, Mr. Ofono Pondo, apologies, alongside Josephine Mayanja Nkanji, a communication specialist. Guests, a very good morning, and thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. How does government treat the current political storm?
I have said on other shows that every storm eventually subsides, and this one will subside. But the long and short of it is that the president is the chief spokesperson of the government and the country. In the immediate case of Arua, like in many others, facts, flow of information is critical. Because the government is too, I should say, large, you would perhaps say amorphous, especially where
Why would I say amorphous?
Where chain of command is relatively unclear. Many players involved. If you look at the case of Arua, one, there is the Electoral Commission. There was the police, which should be the lead agency in law enforcement, law and order. There is the internal security. In this particular case, there was also the Special Forces Command, which guards the president. And where the president's security is involved, in such a situation, it becomes very sensitive. It is not ordinary that the Special Forces Command communicates with the public on incidents like those. So you would expect perhaps that internally in operation, they have coordinated very well with the police, and therefore the police should speak. My feeling is that that hasn't been the case, and because also the nature of our institutions, you get the DPC or you get the spokesperson of Arua police, the district, she may not know even perhaps who is the operation commander of that day of SFC, to get to him to say what happened, what are the details of the incidents. Some of the issues, in my view, are treated as confidential because if you disclose perhaps so much, you further undermine the security of the president. And therefore, those of us who are not in the field have to rely on the people in the field. I am not the SFC commander in the field. Perhaps I wouldn't know him. So I have to depend on the SFC commander in Entebbe or the spokesperson. And so that flow of information becomes tricky.
It brings to light the big question.
Yeah.
Media center is meant to be the sieve, not a mere conduit of information. Do you sieve what you say?
We do sieve what we say. That's why you have not seen a breakdown. We have not escalated situations because of either lack of communication or communicating badly. Now, if you look at that particular case, until the president spoke, there was virtually a vacuum in the communication, because I think many had to wait for what he says or his clearance.
Have you resorted to spinning over speaking the truth?
No. We don't spin. Let me just take you back again to Arua. when the incident happened, the presidential press secretary tweeted, that's now the fastest medium of communication. He tweeted the photograph of the damaged car of the president.
The luggage car.
The luggage carrier. Now, if you in the media, particularly social media, chose to be cynical, you can say that is spinning because somebody asks you, how come? And I think it is also partly the ignorance in the country. Somebody asks you, how can you say if it is a presidential car, the assumption that it is armored, how can it be broken by a mere stone? Now, I say ignorance because perhaps we should have been saying these things or educating our people that even when a car is armored, there are certain parts of it that are not armored. Secondly, providing the other background information was not done. And so maybe that's what we call spinning. So when there's cynicism, people will say, you're spinning, you're not telling the truth. There's something you're hiding. But we don't spin. We say as is, even when it is bad. Let us take the hubris. Somebody says, by continuing to hold these suspects, particularly the MPs who have been uncooperative with the police, you are giving the country a bad international image. For us, we see it differently. We say we want to be firm with indiscipline. Whether you are an elected member of parliament, you are a minister, you are a director, you are an officer. Because if we don't deal with indiscipline among the leaders, we shall not have tranquility in this country. Part of our problem as Uganda has been indiscipline among leaders, not indiscipline of the ordinary person. And therefore, we must continue to be firm, even when temporarily it is giving us, quote and unquote, bad image.
Josephine, we start from there. The country's image in the midst of the current political squabbles. Is PR a big factor to discuss, or it's about nipping indiscipline in the bud?
I think I'll start by, let's define what PR is, or what public relations is, for those people who don't necessarily know what we mean by PR. So based on the dictionary, PR is supposed to be the professional maintenance of a favorable public image, okay, by a company or other organization. Or you can say the state of the relationship, right, between a company or organization, right, or a famous person and the public. So let's start right there. So if we define it in that form, then we have to ask ourselves, do we have a favorable public image right now? And obviously the answer is no. Now, is that deserved? That's now a different conversation, right? But we can all agree, I think, that the image isn't so good right now. For whatever reason, it hasn't turned out very well, okay? So I know that I really do understand where Mr. Opondo is coming from, because he's at that sort of at the tail end of everything that goes on, right? Like he explained, he's not there. He's having to rely on other people's information, and it's almost like us, you know, the public. We're also having to rely on other people's information. So we're sort of in the same plane, and I also feel for him because he doesn't necessarily have
so he's
control.
Just a messenger.
It's not that he's just a messenger also, but there's that lack of control in the sense that he can't necessarily control what so-and-so is saying, especially if it's against what he wants to say. So then you have this conversation going on, and the public is wondering who is saying what. What should we perceive, right? What is the truth versus the truth? So now you're in this situation where there's a huge question mark. He talked about, you know, a storm. You have to figure out what kind of a storm is it. Is it a typhoon? Is it a hurricane? Because you're not going to respond to a mere storm the way you're going to respond to a hurricane, right? And that's the work of PR. Figure it out. What is it? What am I dealing with? What is this animal?
Do you think OO is doing PR as business as usual?
You know what? Sadly, I think so. I think that in a way, he and everybody else underestimated how information moves and the public mood. Okay, when we're communicating, it's not just about PR, but when we're communicating, there are certain stages that we go through professionally, right? We ask ourselves, what is the problem? What is the issue we are dealing with? All right? Then you ask yourself, who am I speaking to about this particular problem? Okay, so you have to define your audience. Because if you don't define that audience, you will misspeak to them, right? The way I speak to my 6-year-old is not the very same way I'm talking to you. You see what I mean? So I have to know, who am I speaking to? Then you have to define, what do they think about that situation? Do they even have a thought about it? Do they care? Yeah? So what do they think? Figure it out before you even say anything, because that means they already have a prejudice of some kind, whether for or against, right? Then you ask yourself, what should I do or say to make them think what I want them to think? So if you don't go through these particular steps, you end up having a misstep.
In the particular case of the Arua saga,
Yeah.
where are the flaws?
I think the flaws were in going through those stages. Because
You
I
never
think-
thought through.
I can't say you never thought through, but the results seem to indicate that nobody thought about, who are we communicating to? What are they going to think? How are they going to react? And how can I cause them to think how I want them to think? So because of that, the communication went awry. Okay? Everybody was communicating differently. Right? I mean, we talked about, the cynicism of the public. And the cynicism, you have to ask yourself, why? Why is it there? What has caused us as an organization, right, to have a public that doesn't believe us? Then you think back and say, okay, was it about this? Is it because of that? Why doesn't this public believe me when I speak? They should just say, yes, yes, sir, that's it, that's correct. We are behind you 100%.
How do you get the unbelieving public? Going by social media?
No, not going by social media alone. Because, I mean, we live in life. We don't live on social media, right? Much as we may operate there, you live in life. You may take a taxi, you have workmates, you have people in the street. I personally take interest in listening to people. I listen a lot to bodas, to who, just to kind of get a feeling of what is really going on. It was very sad because I saw one time on the television, there was a man, I think he was in Luero, and he was so upset. And I thought to myself, this chap, he's not even online. So somehow, somewhere, information has trickled down to him that something has gone wrong and he's not being told the truth. Do you see? Whether or not that is true, that's a different story.
Do we need to question the credibility of government's PR function?
We have to. We have to question it because, you see, they are not speaking to us. They are speaking at us. That's different. Okay? If I tell my child and I say, Anaya, okay, and I say, do this, then she looks at me. And then she asks why. And I said, do this. So I haven't even responded to the why. I'm speaking at her. You see, I'm not engaging her, which I think would have been done.
I think that's very interesting. You're speaking at Ugandans, not to Ugandans.
Well, in this particular case, and the government, I wouldn't want to say it is huge. It's complicated. And I think really for government, and particularly in politics, action is more than the PR she's talking about. Let me give you the example. If police, for example, has arrested and there's an allegation of mistreatment and torture, confinement of high-profile people like the members of parliament were, and the police, that is the lead agency, is not saying where those MPs are, is not showing you physically where those MPs are. However, those MPs have access to their lawyers or relatives who are making a claim that they have been tortured. However good PR person you are, and you have not been given the access to those MPs, what are you going to say? Secondly,
do you want us to be sympathetic?
Yes. No. I don't want to. I don't want to give me sympathy at all. Secondly, take the case of Entebbe, the one of Friday. The best you would do, if you and me were handling a normal situation, we would say, I should have served MP Zake or Bobi Wine with the criminal summon or a warrant on the hospital bed. in that situation, the PR person would have handled it differently, and I believe much better. But if somebody is going to wait to manhandle a high-profile person at the airport, what are you going to say? So what I'm simply saying is, government must act better.
Oh, yes.
Government must act better.
You want
the different players must act better. If they don't act better, they don't provide factual information, and then meet the PR person. Once I have those facts, then I can handle the bit of communication.
Do you feel in a sense you've become a conveyor of distortions?
No, not distortion. For example, what is the distortion? The fact is, somebody has been arrested and the government hasn't denied arresting them. What is in a dispute is you availing them to either your communications person or providing factual information, or even better, showing them to the public as soon as practically possible. This is simply what I'm saying. So there is no distortion. However, there is lag in communication and the physical appearance of the persons. Simply this. So there is no distortion.
What do you think of the country's image at the moment?
The country's image, we have been here before. In fact, we have been in one situation. My belief, and I know, the country's image is not as bad as you try to make it. You, the media in particular, I think the country's image is very good. And where do we say the country's image is very good? We look at our relations with the countries and governments around the world. We look at the investment portfolios. We look at the tourism numbers. Yes, obviously, when there is a hiccup like this, we expect some jitter in the market. For example, in tourism, you may find cancellation. Now, I haven't looked at critically the numbers, whether these cancellations are directly linked to the events of the past 2 weeks. Now, secondly, in a situation like this, even failing businesses will make excuse and blame why their businesses are failing, are going slow on the political fracas.
Do you feel you would have done better?
We should have done better at the action point. Let me go back to Arua. If I had been the police officer in Arua, perhaps I would have let these MPs or confined them in Arua, go and apply to the Chief Magistrate's Court. They summoned them, even if they would have fled back to Kampala. Then they drive themselves back to Arua. In that situation, the allegation of mistreatment, of torture, wouldn't have come up. Secondly, if I had been in Arua and I'm the police officer, there shouldn't have been any reason for me, for example, to arrest a journalist, drive him at night, and then he appears 200 kilometers away in Gulu, bare chest, with the torn vest. At that point, that's where the action should have been much better in terms of the action, the response of the security services. Yes. If I had been better, if the action on the way the MPs appeared in Gulu, if the way they had appeared clean shaven, and you see, if somebody is arrested in Arua, the ordinary mind is that the person should be charged in Arua. Now, you come back and ask, why bring him to Gulu? Is the court in Arua dysfunctional? And that's now where bad motive on the side of government. I think it becomes very difficult to explain that the government meant well in its action. And my job then would be to say, to concede ground that in that respect, the government officers who were in the field did act well.
Do you feel you're defending?
And for me, that should bring out the honesty of government, even when it makes a mistake, the fact that we admit that some of the things were not handled well, that for me should be able to demonstrate the honesty on the side of government.
And that would demonstrate a crisis.
No, not a crisis. I'm talking about honesty.
Let's talk about image. OO says all is well apparently, and the current tensions will cease someday.
I think that is the fundamental problem. I hate to use that word. It's been overused, but that is the fundamental problem. Yeah? The idea that this is just a storm in a teacup and it will pass. You remember what I said? I said you have to figure out what kind of a storm is this. Okay? The way you treat a typhoon is not the way you treat a rainstorm, because the effects are going to be different.
So what storm is this?
Because if the rainstorm comes, it will wash things and it's bye-bye in 10 minutes or 20 minutes is gone. But when you have a hurricane, cars are upside down, right? People's lives, homes are destroyed. So you have this whole debris around the place, and that's what we're looking at now. So for government to simply say, it's well, it will pass. First of all, that angers people, because it says to them that government doesn't care. Government doesn't care about what they say, and government doesn't care what they think. And that is what also causes people to go on the streets and misbehave. You see, because like a child who's trying to get your attention, he's saying, if I don't throw things around in the house, okay, my parents are not listening to me. If I simply tell them I don't like this or I'm unhappy about this, they think it's a joke. They think, oh, well, I'm a child. I'll get over it. Tomorrow I'll forget about it. Okay? So then you start this build-up of anger. And then people go out on the streets and do things they shouldn't have been doing in the first place, because they're simply trying to be heard. They want to be heard, and they want you to respond to them and say, look, we hear you, we understand. We may not agree. You don't have to agree. You see, when there's somebody who feels mistreated on the other end, it's not about you agreeing about why they feel mistreated.
Can we look at the Arua crisis from day one? As a communication specialist, how better would we have done it?
In the
appreciating
first place,
the complexity.
Absolutely, and I get what he's saying. But when you look at, for example, we look at other countries, look at President Donald Trump PR. And I mean, the person who does the PR for that president is in a very difficult seat, I must say. Because you have a president who is communicating and not necessarily communicating, caring about what is going to happen on the other side and what his audience is going to say. But she always comes out and just makes it seem like, oh no, it's normal, it's right, and she just glosses over it. Now, you have to think about how do the people perceive what's going on. Obviously, it's not very good. But then you look at, on the other extreme, you look at someone like Uhuru Kenyatta. I am in awe of that PR machine. The PR machine he has is just amazing, because he may be in trouble for one day, before you know it, in 2 days, he's just out there, and I'm in awe of it. All I'm saying is, if I had looked at Arua in my case, okay, and I understand where he's coming from. You're having people in the field doing all kinds of fracas, doing things without thinking. And we have to understand soldiers. Soldiers are meant to be commanded and to listen to the command. I think as civilians, we kind of assume that soldiers think. And this is not to be insulting to them. But they're not trained to think. They're not expected to have a thought. Okay? They're simply expected to do what they are told, is what I mean. Okay, so if you're told by your commander march, you don't say, but you see, I think, no, you march. Okay, that's the first thing. So whatever they did, as far as I'm concerned, was under command. Now who? I'm not even going to go there. Okay, so they do something that's heinous, because that was heinous behavior. All right, when we look at the facts on the ground as we have them, all right, if you're saying that somebody in Ginger, all right, had somebody in Bobi, then the onus is on you to prove it. Prove it and say, look here, this is how it happened, and this is the problem. Government has not even answered that question, which is in everybody's mind. And that's where you have all these theories coming up. And they say, but wait a minute, these guys are saying they were in Ginger. You're insisting they committed a crime in Bobi somehow. Can you explain to us, how did they do it? First start there, okay? Let us know what happened really. We're not saying that it's a good thing that, you know, somebody tried to injure the president in some way. And that's again where PR comes in. If this was America, let me tell you what they would have done. They would have gotten an expert of armored cars. And they would have come and told you, see, this is an armored car. They show you, they indicate, you know, on this point, it's like this. You see, now you're getting a professional.
That's too sophisticated.
You see, when you're getting a professional, then it says, these guys were telling us that it's not true. Already you're creating doubt. And you need it. You need it because things are bad. You see what I'm saying? All the public is seeing is what is in front of them. And all the only information they are getting, okay, is from the press. You are not telling them what they need to know. The other thing that in this case that government could have done was say sorry. You know, sorry is so simple. It is so easy. They could have said, look here, we apologize, mistakes were made. Because two wrongs don't make a right. You cannot tell me that because so-and-so stole the president's car, therefore, I'm going to break his spine. Is this a government or is this the mafia? You understand? We have to come to a place where we know we are in a nation, a so-called democratic nation. Can we act like it? Can we stop acting like thugs? You understand? So they should have come out and say, we did this, or our forces did this, so it means we did it.
They apologized for beating up a journalist.
Yeah, but they apologized for beating up a journalist after the fact. Do you see what I'm saying? And then nothing was done. Why are you not saying we are sorry? These MPs are in this condition. This is not how governments run. I ask myself, if it was near me, I'm nobody. Do you understand what I'm saying? These are MPs.
Do you notice that the Arua saga has had a lot of lies, concoctions, conspiracy theories?
Yes, I want to tie that with...
you are in the spotlight of
this. Yes, I want to tie that with the... I take exception when she says soldiers don't think.
They take
yes, there's command, but that command is given... First of all, there's a debriefing. And therefore, a soldier is expected, at the debriefing, a soldier would have been expected to ask questions about the command and how that command is going to be executed. Yes, there will be always the black sheep if you go for those operations where people either because of personal pressure, they are not well trained to handle that pressure, they will act outside the guidelines. And like the UPDF has said, the incidents, even beating a journalist, beating anybody is regrettable. Secondly, I want to tie that with on the other side,
the president is saying the MPs were confronting soldiers, so they had to be contained.
Well, you are listening to you are listening to your lies in the newspaper because somebody quotes the president allegedly telling NRM MPs in a caucus, and they write it, and you want to quote that. I have no evidence that the president justified the beating of the MPs because allegedly they were confrontation. But the point I wanted to make was that, first of all, we communicate for Uganda. Now, for the Ugandans, yes, we want international community to perceive us, to see us in good light. But what do the Ugandans want? The Ugandans want a stable, responsible government and country. And therefore, over time, I do believe that the Ugandans here know that this government means well, even where mistakes are made. Yes, we could have communicated better, but I have even emphasized that we should have done, the actors should have behaved differently. That would have made things better. I mean, if you don't beat a journalist, if you don't beat an MP, if you don't transfer an MP from Arua to Gulu, then there would even be no reason for the need to explain why. The other point is really you asked about the Arua...
The lies, we're looking at the conspiracy theories. At one moment there is a gun, there is a stone.
First of all, what is not disputable is that the presidential vehicle was destroyed. That cannot be disputed, except if you have ill intent. ask the police. I'm sure, I know that the vehicle was brought from Arua.
Have you seen it?
I have seen it. The vehicle was brought from Arua. And again, yes, I agree with Josephine that if we were handling things differently, you could have taken their experts, explained to the journalists why a bullet or armored car, in what circumstances an armored car can actually be destroyed. But here, most of the things, remember, we are dealing with people who say presidential security. Even just taking a photograph, any other person taking a photograph, I don't think any other person has that.
Did you see that car?
I have seen it in Entebbe, yes.
And it's a luggage car?
It is a luggage car.
With an emblem?
A luggage carrier. I have seen it in Entebbe.
It's a luggage carrier with an emblem?
And yes.
Okay.
And I can tell you, for instance, I have been asked, I said, why don't we end this debate? Let us bring the media and they take. But if somebody has chosen to take it as a matter of presidential security, there is no reason for me to continue insisting, because I do believe the unfolding events will eventually absolve. Let me just say, tie that together with the alleged mistreatment or indeed torture, which you have talked about the lies. Yes, the lies may come first, but the truth will eventually come out. What are the lies? After the social media and the media and you, the journalists, said Bobi Wine, for example, was dead. That was what they said on social media. When he eventually appeared, they said he had physical, grievous bodily injuries. When he appeared in the court martial, nobody could see physical wounds on his head.
After how long?
After 2 days.
After?
They had said...
Was it 2 days or a week?
2 days. No. At the court martial. At the court martial in Gulu. It was 2 days.
Okay.
Yeah, the court martial at Gulu. Then, you remember at that time, you were affirming that Bobi Wine had suffered physical... the limbs, meaning the arms and the legs, had been broken. Once Bobi Wine came to Makinde military barracks, and MPs were able to go to see him, the deputy speaker was able to go to see him, his family were able to see him, then you conjured up lies. You said, when I say you, I don't mean you.
It's okay.
Yeah, the social media. And they said he had now suffered internal organ damage, because now they knew, first of all, their lies of him being dead had been disproved. Their lies of him having physical broken limbs had been disproved. Their lies that he cannot talk, because, for instance, when they said that Bobi Wine was so sick to speak, and then, good enough, his wife came back into the media and said the husband had narrated to her in detail. Now, somebody who cannot speak, but was able to narrate. So I don't have to even argue. So you are out to call me as a liar? Yes, I don't even have to argue with somebody who says Bobi Wine is dead, Bobi Wine has broken arm, Bobi Wine has a big wound on the head, Bobi Wine can't stand. When he can't stand, and he indeed has crutches, he's walking with the crutches, or feigning to walk with the crutches, but he's putting on...
You need to emphasize this.
And then he's...
Feigning?
Feigning, and then he says he has been so badly injured on his legs, but he can put on shoes that are 2 kilograms each. Then I leave that to the public. I leave that to the public, because I do believe those facts will eventually come out. I don't have to argue with you. I don't have to argue with Bobi Wine whether his leg is broken. I expect that the media and the public that is seeing him putting on shoes that are 2 kilograms heavy each will say, but really, if his leg was that badly injured, would he be putting on those shoes? Isn't it
rather insensitive for a spokesperson?
I'm not being sensitive. You are asking about how do we deal with the lies. I don't have to whitewash that. I think in that public relations he's talking about, sometimes it's necessary to say the things the way they are.
So who is lying?
No, I want to correct something, because this doesn't even make any sense. First of all, the time lag, there was a distinct time lag between the time Honorable Kyagulanyi was taken and the time he was seen. And me, smart as I am, I knew that when he came out, he's going to look like that. I knew it. It was deliberate. What if there was nothing wrong with him? You should have produced him. That was the best way to consider and say, you know what, these people are telling lies. But you didn't do that. You waited. Let me tell you something. When somebody is tortured, okay, or let's talk about spousal abuse, right? You do not let your wife come out when you battered her. You wait until the physical, the most obvious injuries are not visible. So I'm sorry, that one I will not buy it. Why? Because there's no evidence to prove that he wasn't. You see, he's claiming he was. No, my point is this. You see him. No, I'm not alleging. I'm saying, look, you haven't proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Because you see, like I said, you allowed time to elapse. You see what I'm saying? So that there is a problem.
Do you want to suggest
you see what I'm saying?
Battered?
So that brings in an issue.
Well, obviously, if you get into a fracas of that nature in Arua, you expect to have a scratch. Now, whether that scratch is deliberate or is done to is a different matter. Now, I again want to dispute Josephine. This fracas was on 13th. It was a Sunday. Bobi Wine appeared in court, I think, on a Tuesday, the court in Gulu, where his lawyers and him claimed that he could not speak in court because he was feeling deep pain and couldn't speak. We have seen suspects in courts every other day where somebody comes to court and doesn't speak. Should we say that they can't speak because they are too ill, or they have chosen to keep quiet because they know that is the best way they can play to the gallery? Let us look at the case of Jamil Mukulu. When Jamil Mukulu was taken to Nalufenya, what did he say? When he appeared in the court the first time, he said he had been tortured. He said he had been served pork. I don't have to argue with Jamil Mukulu whether or not he was served pork, because I know in the circumstances he was in, he would want to enlist the hugest public sympathy. Now, sometimes
So was the case with Bobi Wine and others?
It is possible in the course of the fracas, he sustained injury. Now, that cannot be interpreted definitively that he was tortured. Now, if he's claiming that he was tortured, like in this case, I have said over the last 2 weeks, now evidence is beginning to come out that one, there is no physical wound on his head, there's no broken limbs.
He's feigning disability.
He can, yes.
Oh?
Yes, and I want to look you in the eye and say, yes, in my view.
The military came out and said, when the military, when they brought out the medical report from the military, what did it say? Because if I recall correctly, they said, right,
that he
had. It's not about whether he was tortured or not. For me, that is not even the issue.
Precisely,
we are talking about did he have injuries or not. That's where we started from.
This is why I'm saying that if you get involved in that fracas, and I mean in the case of Bobi Wine and Zake, if their conduct is in Parliament is anything to go by, what would we expect them if they were confronted by police to arrest them in a room, in a darkness? Would you expect them to easily surrender, or they could have put up a fight? Now, in that fight, it is possible that somebody can sustain injury. The extent to that injury could be minor, could be grievous.
So first of all, you're claiming it was in the dark. You see, you're making a lot of claims, and that you make you're making claims because
they were arrested at night.
And so that doesn't mean the lights were off.
I am using darkness.
You are making suppositions, so you must allow us to also make suppositions. You see, it goes two ways. You see, you are making a lot of assumptions,
and I am saying it is now 3 weeks.
We also have to make assumptions.
I want to see that overt bodily injury. Yes, it is possible
that medical report said what? What did the medical report that came from the army say?
You have the medical report? As far as I know, by the way, I was there when the medical report was being released. The medical report did
not... It said he's in perfect health.
Not perfect.
You were there.
Yes, I was there at
what gives you that privilege to access the medical records?
I'm saying I was there when they were releasing at that press conference in Nakuru. The medical report said Honorable Bobi Wine suffered facial tissue damage. I think that's the term, the phrase they used. Facial tissue damage. Meaning that superficial. I think the word they use, superficial. Meaning it was not deep, it was not grievous.
That was a scratch.
Yes, that could be a scratch. And
so the report where they said that there was injury, that one of his organs, right, had injury to it.
That's not true.
It's not true.
It's not true. You are making that up.
I'm not making it up. It's what I read. That's what the report said.
What did the medical board discover?
You should just tell us the medical board said, because now this is what is out there.
That warranted his exit, his flight to US.
No. By the way, again, you're misrepresenting. This examination in Kirudu was occasioned by the president of the Uganda Law Society, who wrote on the 23rd to the DPP, saying we have read, we have heard, there has been reports that these MPs were tortured. We demand that you cause them to be examined and we have a credible report. The DPP in turn wrote to the Uganda police, the director of CID, demanding, I have received this letter, I am directing you to cause the medical examination of these two persons and furnish me with the report so that I in turn furnish Uganda Law Society. By government practice, which is a regulation, if Uganda police is going to take you to court or anywhere else, they must subject you to a government medical facility examination. As far as I know, that was simply a procedural requirement. What the medical board of 2 days ago, I think Friday night, discovered, I am not privy. I am not privy. But that was simply to meet it, so that perhaps, for example, if there was indeed torture at the hands of government, one, it should help police to investigate and bring the torturers to book.
But there was an examination by prison authorities. Why are you silent on it?
Secondly, and you can go and ask about Dr. Johnson. By the way, he said it is not even prison. It is again a procedure. Any person who is being admitted in the prison, Uganda prison facility, the requirement is they should be examined. In the case of Honorable Bobi Wine, the prisons in Guru, when he appeared before the Chief Magistrate's Court, after that, they took him to Lacho Hospital. And the reason the prisons admitted him was that the medical report from Lacho Hospital was satisfactory that he was fit to be admitted in the prisons.
Can we continue with this after the break? We will continue delving into the conspiracy theories, the lies, the concoctions, and of course, the kind of propaganda that is trading all over the social media and traditional media platforms. That comes after the break. Good morning. Welcome back. Still looking at the lies, the conspiracy theories, the propaganda, the maligning campaign, and how social media is redefining the way government speaks at or to the masses. And with Josephine Mayanja Nkanji, who's brought in the new narrative that government is now speaking at the people, while Ofono Pondo says they are speaking for the people. There's also that theory, and I think you're the promoter, that Western forces are part of the campaign to make government look bad. How true is this?
No, let me first go back to torture. You see, if, for example, the lawyers of the suspects First of all, I don't expect the lawyer of the suspect to say that their clients were treated well. I don't expect the lawyers of the suspect to say their clients were not tortured, because otherwise then perhaps they wouldn't have got bail. So
no,
you go to court, you go to court.
This is the challenge
you go to court, you go to court and say, my suspect was badly tortured, medical facilities in Uganda cannot attend to them, we need this bail so that they go out. That's one thing.
But this is the problem you have, because you see, here's the thing, the whole point of this conversation is public relations. How does the public perceive what is going on, right? Now, you have one suspect incognito, nowhere to be seen, to be found. Even when he went to the first court the first time, nobody saw him except those people who are in the court, right? And I'm going to assume you were not there, so you don't know what he looked like or what was going on. So you and I are left to speculate. Now imagine what the public has to do. And then on the other side of the coin, you have Honorable Zake in the condition that he's in. Do you see where people are coming from? Yeah? So they're adding 1 plus 2 and getting 5. It's human nature. You see, so you're at a very big disadvantage to be able to say, no, this one is faking, but this one is actually sick. Then the question is, how did this one get like this? And then you're saying this one is not like that. Do you see what the problem is? Because you have common actors here. Okay? They were both held. They were both taken. And then you come up with this other story of, oh, this person escaped from hospital. And then you're looking at the house and you're like, this one, how did this one escape from the hospital? Whose custody were they under in the first place? Then, to make matters even worse, let me use wrong English. Yeah? The press, you see on a couple, not even once, you see more than once. You see the press being hit. You see regular citizens being beaten like cows. So then how do you come out and say, no, you know, this is a lie? It becomes difficult, not because it's not a lie. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is perception now, you see, is built on those things.
Josephine, about escape, we've seen cases where corpses disappear from mortuaries. We've seen cases where people break prison walls or escape. Yes, Zake could have been sick or may be sick, but that does not mean he doesn't have people, he did have people who aided him, either within the people who were supposed to keep him, the police, or the nurses at a Royal Hospital where he had asked to be taken for quick first aid. Because you now ask yourself, if he was too ill and didn't have people aiding him, how did he find himself in Rubaga?
Have you established who colluded with him?
That matter is under investigation, and I hope it will be brought at the by the one.
Welcome back. Still looking at the lies, the conspiracy theories, the propaganda, the maligning campaign, and how social media is redefining the way government speaks at or to the masses. And with Josephine Mayanja Nkanji, who's brought in the new narrative that government is now speaking at the people, while Ofono Pondo says they are speaking for the people. There's also that theory, and I think you're the promoter, that Western forces are part of the campaign to make government look bad. How true is this?
No, let me first go back to torture. You see, if, for example, the lawyers of the suspects, first of all, I don't expect the lawyer of the suspect to say that their clients were treated well. I don't expect the lawyers of the suspect to say their clients were not tortured, because otherwise then perhaps they wouldn't have got bail. So you go to court, you go to court.
This is the challenge you go to court,
you go to court and say, my suspect was badly tortured, medical facilities in Uganda cannot attend to them, we need this bail so that they go out. That's one thing.
But this is the problem you have, because you see, here's the thing, the whole point of this conversation is public relations. How does the public perceive what is going on, right? Now, you have one suspect incognito, nowhere to be seen, to be found. Even when he went to the first court, the first time, nobody saw him, except those people who are in the court, right? And I'm going to assume you were not there, so you don't know what he looked like or what was going on. So you and I are left to speculate. Now imagine what the public has to do. And then on the other side of the coin, you have Honorable Zake in the condition that he's in. Do you see where people are coming from? Yeah? So they're adding 1 plus 2 and getting 5. It's human nature. You see, so you're at a very big disadvantage to be able to say, no, this one is faking, but this one is actually sick. Then the question is, how did this one get like this? And then you're saying this one is not like that. Do you see what the problem is? Because you have common actors here. Okay? They were both held. They were both taken. And then you come up with this other story of, oh, this person escaped from hospital. And then you're looking at the person and you're like, how did this one escape from the hospital? Whose custody were they under in the first place? Then, to make matters even worse, let me use wrong English. Yeah? The press, you see on a couple, not even once, you see more than once. You see the press being hit. You see regular citizens being beaten like cows. So then how do you come out and say, no, you know, this is a lie? It becomes difficult, not because it's not a lie. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is perception now, you see, is built on those things.
Josephine, about escape, we've seen cases where corpses disappear from mortuaries. We've seen cases where people break prison walls or escape. Yes, Zake could have been sick or may be sick, but that does not mean he doesn't have people, he didn't have people who aided him, either within the people who are supposed to keep him, the police, or the nurses at a Royal Hospital where he had asked to be taken for quick first aid. Because you now ask yourself, if he was too ill and he didn't have people aiding him, how did he find himself in Rubaga?
Have you established who colluded with him?
That matter is under investigation, and I hope it will be brought at the by the way, one of the reasons why the DPC of Arua is being held for negligence and incompetence. And also, let me remind, because you see, if you have a suspect in your hands, you are the police. Whether this suspect has said, I want medication, and you give your officers to take him to Arua Hospital, and then for some reason your officers come back and say we cannot. Okay.
How credible is your narrative when you can't tell who helped Bobi, rather who helped Zake to escape, how he ended up in Rubaga Hospital, or you equally speculate?
Well, I can tell you that he was aided to leave Arua Hospital and was brought to Rubaga. And you remember the first story? They said it was the police or the army that dumped him, which was totally not true. He was aided. And I am telling you that he was aided. It could have been the police or the medical people, plus the political operatives in Arua, but aided him to come to.
How many times have you seen people disappearing, right? Yeah. And then they show up having been dumped somewhere.
Yes, I agree.
At 3 in the morning.
I agree with you. I agree with you that there have been instances where security forces have arrested a person, or if arrest, even deny that we don't have them, and 2 days later, the person resurfaces
in the wrong place at the wrong time.
And then he gives graphic details of where he had been held or by whom. There are those unfortunate instances which shouldn't happen, and we endeavor to ensure that arresting officers are known.
Let's not go by case, but social media banters. Lately, I'm seeing you too engrossed. Are you speaking as Uganda Media Center or an NRM spokesman?
All the above.
All the above.
All the above. Because social media, the reason it is called social is exactly that. That sometimes there's a thin line between the name of Fono and the executive director.
Using the platform of the media center.
Yes. Yes.
To say Namboze is faking her illness.
What would be, because she's your support, you are her supporter, you can go that day.
No, that's again, consequential for now.
Again, by the way, even in that case, because how did that come up? 2 days, 3 days earlier, Honorable Namboze had visited Honorable Zaki in Rubaga Hospital. From the footage that I have, and that the media has, she had walked into the hospital, stood by the bed, unaided for close to 15-20 minutes, had chats. 2 days later, Honorable Namboze, in a different scenario, is summoned to court in Nakawa. She appears in Nakawa court in a wheelchair. First of all, before she walked into the magistrate's chambers, she had an injection, somebody giving her something that appeared emergency care, and then she's wheeled into the magistrate's court, complete in tears. And then I simply said, by the way, it was actually a media center account, and the media center said, put the 2 photographs, and said, which Namboze should we believe?
I think
now you can say that was insensitive. You can say it was insensitive, perhaps, but that was simply the context in which.
I think this is when I look at ignorance, okay?
And contextualize it with the media center.
I don't know. I've not met Honorable Namboze, so I don't know. But I can speak from the perspective of somebody who suffers from a back injury myself, okay? I'm walking in and I'm wearing heels. You may see me today. In the evening at 6 o'clock, I may tell you, you know what, Simon? I can't move. It's called wear and tear. It happens, especially if the injury is on a nerve in the back. It happens.
What do you think of such a post on a government account?
Okay, because this is what he said. He said sometimes he's himself. He's not like Jekyll and Hyde. So sometimes he's himself, sometimes he has to talk as a government, which is a difficult position to be in. I think, ideally, what he's probably going to have to do maybe is separate accounts. So that people sometimes, like if he wants to speak for himself.
Well, I am, in this particular case, I'm saying that particular one was on the Uganda Media Center account. And unless you're saying what I am saying, I have conjured it up, is untrue, is false, is insensitive, there we can debate. If you say that particular one, it is bad to laugh at somebody who is sick, that would mean I am insensitive. But that I cast doubt on the credibility of that person, I am entitled to cast doubt on the credibility. And I agree with you. It is not just about somebody who's having backache like yours. We could be debating here, and 20 minutes after leaving this studio, I am dead. Somebody will be surprised that, but Ofono has been shouting on the show just 20 minutes ago. What happened? I agree with you. And that's why I'm saying, you can say that posting of the Uganda Media Center could have been sensitive, but was deliberate, and we have no apology for it.
But you should have an apology. See what I'm saying?
Opposition politicians are playing stunts for public relations purposes, because you're casting doubt on every single opposition.
Not all of them. Your opposition, I have not cast doubt on what you say. Here. No, everybody knows that you stood down on a DP ticket. So, not all of them, but clearly there are those that, in certain circumstances, play stand. Let us go back September last year. In September last year in Parliament, the first people to threaten violence in Parliament were the opposition, who convened a press conference and said they dare the Speaker chair a sitting where Raphael Magezi would. Now, once the fracas came out, and you remember the accosting of Honorable Simeon Soboga, and then we cautioned, we said, please don't start violence, because when you start violence, you can never tell where it ends. who are now crying the loudest. Nobody remembers that where did all this begin? Where did all this begin? I'm not trying to justify it, but there are opposition members
who are playing stunts.
There are those that are genuine. And there are cases where clearly people have been mistreated.
Josephine, let's look at how social media is redefining the way government is communicating. President Museveni is on record. He's been blogging lately, actively, with a lot of energy. You would feel the zeal in the president's tone, the bazukuru.
Which is very interesting for somebody who said that social media is practically nonsense. Yeah, I think that you know, he really should apologize. So here's the thing. Again, who are we talking to? What are we saying? What do they think? What do we want them to think? Or for no, really? If you know that the mood in the country is one of anger, you cannot I am not
saying that anger, by the way.
You're ignorant of the fact that
by the way, there are many people I interact with, and I think I interact with Uganda more than you do. There are many people who are happy with the step. Yesterday, I met a lady who said, please be firm with dealing with indisciplinados. Be firm. Tell government to be firm.
Josephine, please make a point.
Okay. This definition of firm is now also going to take another level, because I don't know in which society being firm, okay, means beating citizens like cows. I don't know what that means. But hey, okay, whatever. So here's my thing. So you know things are not looking too good. Then you come out and you decide to throw, I don't know what. Why would you say on a government handle, this person is faking? You know something, all you had to do was say, interestingly, if it were I would say, interestingly, Honorable Nambose walked into this and this room on this day. Today, she's in a wheelchair, and left it at that. That's smart communication.
Was it
necessary? So that anybody who has any sense would say, let me think about it. Instead, you come at bull in a China shop. There is a way to communicate. There is no need to raise tempers, I don't know what. There is absolutely no need for it, because again, we're looking at it from a PR standpoint, not from personal standpoint. And we have to make our organizations look good, no matter how bad they are. We have to make them, that's our job, to make them look good. So we have to figure out, how are we talking to people and what are we saying?
Is this miscommunication having a toll on the image of the government?
Of course. Of course, if the president comes out, okay, and says the things he says, and then you're like, okay, sir, thank you for saying the things you have said. Number one, what is the basis for what you have said? Number two, is it relevant? Do I really want to hear what you're telling me right now? What is on my mind right now? Okay, this is what I need you to address.
The president is blogging, so that means the president is communicating and feeling a void.
It's not about, when you're communicating, it's not about simply opening your mouth. And that's not what I'm saying he's doing. All I'm saying is, look, you don't just say what to say forever for the point of saying something. You have to be tactical in what you're saying. Okay, and especially when you're talking to this so-called bazukuru of yours, who you know are already fired up. Good, bad, nonsensical. Like I said before, you see, when somebody feels aggrieved, you don't have to agree with them. You understand? They may be a joker. In terms, as far as you're concerned, they may just be joking around. But the point is, address them at their point of view.
Josephine, when you look at the online tirade, does it suggest to you that perhaps social media is the new threat to the state? Social media is the new threat to the state everywhere around the world. Why? Because, first of all, it's a place where, like somebody said, there's no policeman. In fact, I think it was Emilian Kaima who said, you know, one of the things that he's facing is the fact that, you know, with social media, there's no gatekeeper. Okay? I can say what I want to say, how I want to say on my hand, or when I want to say it. Okay? And unless you're China, you really can't block it. All right? So this is the issue. And then it requires you to have a very quick response. Because it requires you to have a very quick response, you have to be on your toes all the time, every single moment. So you can't afford. And I guess you give it to OO. He's tweeting, he's posting regularly and actively. What is he tweeting and what is he posting regularly and actively? It's good that he's doing it.
Well, you know, Josephine has been with us in the government before. I am not sure what success she made there. But for me, it is good that the president has gone onto the new platform of social media.
Yes, we congratulate him.
We don't.
The idle talk as well.
We don't expect. First of all, that platform is not yours or alone. Even the president should be there.
Absolutely.
Now,
he should know that.
I don't expect that when the president or when Ofono communicates, you agree with either what I say or with the method that I wish to use or that I use. I don't expect any opponent of President Yoweri Museveni or this government to say he is doing the right thing. I would expect them to say he's doing nothing, and when he does it badly. But the point I'm making is, for me, it is good that the president has gone to that social media platform, which largely is of young, perhaps educated people, and he's engaging with them. It would have been
Is the kind of hostile reaction
no,
good for
it's good. It's good. First of all, for the president to know that this audience, these are their concern, that there are things that either me as president, me as Museveni, or my government is not doing right. The onus then should be on the president and the government he leads to pay attention to the concern of that audience.
Exactly. So you agree with me?
Yeah, but you cannot say that because when I communicate or when he communicates and some like to take the thing of Abazukulu, you have seen people have lambasted him and said, we are not your grandchildren. We're not our grandparents. The fact that I am receiving hostility when I'm communicating shouldn't make me retreat. I should now find out how better.
As we sign out
exactly.
The fundamental
That's
question.
That's the point. No, I want to also address the issue that he said. It has nothing to do with being against or for the president. And I think the president knows where I stand on that one. Okay? So you can feel free to ask him. All right? Personally. It's not about that. At the end of the day, we are talking about communication and we're talking about PR.
Okay.
And if the president communicates something, right, that is not going to be well received, me as a PR, I'm going to say, Mr. President, you're going to communicate. And we're happy you're going to communicate. But maybe you should rethink this one. How about this one? What do you think? I mean, we do that with our bosses all the time.
You take O's posts, his writings as OO or government, yourself?
I don't. I assume he's talking as government all the time because, I mean, really, at no point do I see him, unless he's talking about football, in which case I'll be like, okay, that's OO watching football. Otherwise, I can't. He's a public figure, so I assume. You know? Is
government doing PR right?
No, they are not. They are not doing PR right. Stop talking at us. Talk to us. By the very fact of saying, oh, I am going to go in my handle and I'm going to say what I want to say, when I want to say it, and I shouldn't dictate, then you're talking at us. In which case, talk to yourself. You're free to talk to yourself.
Are you doing PR right? Or you need to rethink?
We may not be doing all right, but I think we are communicating with the people of Uganda. And where do we
more in a defensive manner?
No, where do we see the results? Yes, there may be an angry voice and a corner there. We need to reach to them.
Do they constitute the majority?
No, I don't think they constitute the majority, and that is reflected, even in the current circumstances, how the people of Uganda overall support the programs, the different programs of this government. I do believe this will be certainly decided in the next cycle of election. If this government is not doing things right, if this government is not communicating better, it will be thrown out. Let us watch the space.
This is sad.
The ranting minority in the corner.
Yes, there may be angry people at the corner there. I have checked, by the way, I've profiled the social media people, particularly Twitter and Facebook. You find somebody who has opened this account yesterday. He has 2 followers, but he's throwing all sorts of insults. Maybe he has been provoked into action by the way he sees government handling the situation when the government could have handled the situation better. Or his anger has been provoked into opening this account because he feels like Nkanji is saying they are not being reached. They are not being reached. with better communication. They're not being engaged. They're not being given information proactively. And so he opens an account. And so that's why I'm saying I don't consider them the majority. Because at least the ones who follow me, I have cross-checked. You find 2, 3, 4 followers. Clearly somebody opened an account 2 weeks ago for purposes of insulting Ofono, for purposes of insulting government, insulting Museveni, and that's okay.
You'd rather ignore them?
Not ignore them. This by the way partly helps us to gather, to provide intelligence for government. Intelligence in the sense that you pick out what people's concerns are. Some of the concerns may be legitimate. Some of the concerns may not be legitimate.
I'm sorry, we're out of time.
But still, you address them.
Is the West fueling this blackmail?
Yes, partly. And this is just not a Roma. It is not. I don't think this is the forum for me to say which embassies we know. Embassies, and I want to be specific that foreign missions here that we know, train people, fund them, particularly through civil society organization. But this is a game. This is a game that they play around the world. When you see the Arab Spring, for you think. When you see the Arab Spring, you see Cairo, you think that Egyptians are angry. No, CIA is at work.
But you started off this conversation by saying that you have
that's all time we had for this morning. Yes. Thank you, Josephine. Thank you. All coming up next is a breakfast meeting. Have a lovely day. Good morning. Thank you.